Hi, you guys. Thanks for joining today. Let's take another preview look at the Doors of Somlipith, a new dimension in card reading. Coming out this March of 2023. I hope you have your copy pre-ordered. Today, we're going to take a special look just at the deck of this book and card set. This deck that you receive is a playing card deck. It's a 52 card deck plus 2 jokers, but playing cards like you've never ever seen before. And at first glance, most people don't think they're playing cards because every card is illustrated and they're so archetypal. They're so unlike standard playing card deck. This is the Ace of Hearts and the King of Diamonds. And these are art pieces by my father, CJ Freeman. Most people knew him as Charlie. But this body of work that we find in this set was CJ's very first body of work, right? He has other published decks, but this was his first body of work, and honestly, it was his first love. It was his complete obsession, and it was his total heartbreak, right? As many first loves do break our hearts. But CJ died without ever seeing these images published in any way or out in the public in any way. And that was profound. I remember him laying in bed, like maybe, I don't know, a couple of weeks or so before he died. And he looked up at me and asked me, he said, should I give the paintings away? Should I give the paintings away? And that's what we always referred to these images as. They were just the paintings. We both knew what that was. And I had to think about it because, it had been 30 years at that point since these paintings came through. And nothing had happened with them except they'd been dragged around from basement to garage to family members' attic to this place and that place. And paintings were going missing. They were getting damaged. And the dream started to feel like it had slipped away. And I thought about that question, my father, and I said, no, you shouldn't. Because you don't give up on a dream. You don't give up on the thing that makes you feel like you're alive. And that's what these paintings were. This was my father's life purpose. And so it's so exciting to see them out in such a beautiful treatment as Schiffer Redfeather has given these cards. And it's so funny. This card, the King of Hearts, often comes to me as my father. I feel like he's here with us right now. So what else about this deck? My father was a medium. He was in communication with spirits, and he had that, it's like that veil was super thin to him, and he was always telling me about conversations he'd had with different discarnate beings of different kinds. And this deck was an expression of his communication with that world. These are spirits that we find coming through the archetypes of the playing cards. Completely original archetypes birthed out of that world. And so this was very alive to him. And there was a point in time when my father was so frustrated, so heartbroken, so upset that these images had never found an expression, right, in the world. He never found a publishing contract that he thought was fair. And the paintings just sat there for years. And he started to go mad. And he started destroying paintings as if to hurt the spirits, right? Like you do when you're in a relationship and you want to hurt the other person. And he said, why? He literally cried out to the spirits. He said, why did you use me like this? If it was all for nothing, if it was all to come to nothing. And he slashed paintings. So I had to recreate this deck. I had to find imagery for these missing paintings. And thank God that there just happened to be photographs of the paintings that were missing that were usable to fill those gaps in. So I have most of the originals of this deck, but not all. This is one of the missing paintings. This one right here, the Fortress of Desire of all cards. That's a missing painting. Dracula was another one that just left the planet early, you know? So he had to be recreated from old photographs. The Sword, a beautiful painting. And so that's a little bit of the backstory, you know, but there are powerful keys, you guys, that these images bring forward that no other deck has. Keys hidden in the symbology of playing cards that have never been expressed before. And these images work with those keys and give life to them. It's like someone who created the playing cards was trying to translate a living world into symbols and numbers. And this is what my father tapped into, was this living world. This is a real place, a real dimension. That's why the subtitle of the set is A New Dimension in Card Reading. Look at this. Leah, Queen of Clubs. Saul, King of Clubs. So anyway, there's so much in this deck for me, so much emotion, so much everything, so much that I want to give you guys through these cards. My father was ahead of his time. He was a man out of time. He was misunderstood, as so many are who come through with a mission like my father had. And the time is now. The time has finally come. Right, a full 40 years after these images were created. And it's so exciting to see that the world is ready now for these images. What an appropriate card, the fawn. Love this. trying to get the light right so you can see the image properly on here. Just a beautiful, beautiful image. And other things, a viewer asked about the colors of black and red and how the gold suit sign, right, which is so nice on here, so regal, that playing cards deserve. But they asked, well, where'd the black and red go, right? We have to have the black and red when we're doing cardomancy. It's non-negotiable. Well, the colors of the suit signs are now on the borders of the card, right? So any black suit sign card, any spade card, any club card is going to have a black border, and any diamond or heart card is going to have a red border. So you get that color punch. When you're laying a spread out, you can visually get the sense of the play between the red and the black, which, as I said, non-negotiable in cardomancy. So never fear, that is here. We made sure that the red and the black would show up. What else about these cards? Let's take a look at the backs, right? And I love this lion's head knocker, right? Don't you love it? Doesn't it feel great? It feels so regal to me, so royal, so fierce and independent and brave. And that is the spirit of this deck, of these cards, of this way of card reading. And of course, the cards are the Doors of Somlipith, right? What else would they be? These are the doors. And it's illustrated here, so we never forget that cards are not cards, they are doorways. And doorways lead us into things, right? Lead us into rooms of treasure. Lead us into libraries of knowledge. Lead us into new dimensions. All of that we access through these cards. And so the doorway, the Doors of Somlipith. And another thing about the lion's head that's so epic. Do you guys recall the lion's head image from any of CJ's body of work, from any of CJ's other cards? Well, the lion's head knocker appears on the doorway of the Eight of Diamonds in the playing card oracles. It's a card called the House of Good Fortune. And it's said to be the luckiest card in the deck. And so every time we turn a card in the Doors of Somlipith, we're opening the doorway on the House of Good Fortune. And I love that. And so I'm sure that my father had something to do with this, was pulling the strings on the other side, and it's perfect for these cards. And I know this video is getting long, so let's call this next section to come a bonus section. This is one of the ladies. This is Tareen, the lady of spades, and we now have a new template that is a return to the original template, and that is that tens, right, the number 10 in the deck is now returned to the court. Where it belongs. And it is a female card, as the number 10 is a female number, being an even number. And so we have a restoration of the court with all of CJ Freeman's decks, no exception with this deck. So the court is now mended. It has 2 female members and 2 male members, perfectly balanced as the numbers of the deck would suggest. And we have one mature male card, right, the king, alongside a mature female card, the queen. And now we have this juvenile jack, the male juvenile card, balanced by the juvenile female card, or the young female card. And I feel like history silenced and deleted the young female voice, which is so easy to trample, right, in society at large. It's so easy to discredit and just, mistreat younger female energy. And I feel like that's what happened historically, that as decks were recreated, right, as new decks came into being, the original construction of the 52 card deck got altered. And it was great for certain powers, certain interests, to have a dominantly male court. It was a statement for the times, and it was a way to suppress women, and specifically young women, and their voice and their power. And so it's so critical, you guys, that we heal that. So important. How can we move forward, especially in cartomancy, without this voice, right? Which really just creates this harmonic balance between old and young, between male and female. How can the world spin round without that counterbalance? So we have that in CJ Freeman's decks. And we have historical precedent telling us that this deck existed in this way in early times. And yet CJ completely downloaded that. It wasn't because of historical research that he did. Although after he had created this deck, he then started to become very curious about the history of playing cards and started researching the history, and indeed found evidence to support what he was completely connecting to on an energetic level. So all the 10s are lady cards, and you have a 16 card court in this Doors of Somlipith deck, right? Ladies, jacks, queens, and kings. They're not 10s anymore. Just like a jack is, you don't call jacks 11s. It's a jack. The ladies are ladies, and they have that status in here, and you'll find 4 of them with important archetypes to bring to the table, right, that relate to the 4 elements that the suit signs represent. So these cards, you guys, if you have the original playing card oracle deck and you're wondering, if you're on the fence about this deck, about branching out into this new territory created by CJ Freeman, or brought forward by CJ Freeman, know that there is a lot of overlap. So the transition should be, you know, very natural for you. But there's also stuff in here, juicy material that can be accessed through these cards, these particular images that are not available from any of CJ Freeman's other work or any other playing cards. These bring forward a completely unique way of using playing cards. They have their own spirit. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments. I'd love to address it in a video. If you have any comments, I'd love to hear it. Thank you so much for watching, and I can't wait to share this book and card set, The Doors of Somlipith, with you guys.